So I need to get my drill out, and it is behind this motor grader right here. So I guess I need to get it out of the way. Ain't been cranked in a while because last thing it done was push some snow, and there's a Kubota RTV sitting in front of it, so I gotta get it out of the way. And I'll be surprised if the batteries are up on this thing enough to get it cranked, but we'll find out. Alright, so I got the tie seed drill hooked up and ready to go, and I want to set up my GPS for the seed drill. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to make a video. I had a request for this by Preston. I was going to make a video on, he asked me to make a video on how to set up the GPS. I don't know everything there is to know about this GPS, and well, anyway, it's just going to just kind of be a basic setup is what I'm going to do. And if you've just installed this thing and you hadn't set it up for the tractor, or if you do like I do and you have it on a couple of different tractors, this thing doesn't save your settings for each vehicle, so you have to change every time you change vehicles or implements. You have to change the settings. You can't just go in here and choose seed drill or a different tractor. So let's say you've never had this on a tractor, or you're switching tractors. First thing you got to do is go to vehicle, and then you want to go to vehicle setup. Once you do that, first thing is vehicle type, and this is a four-wheel drive or mechanical four-wheel drive tractor. That's what this is. You got articulated or tractor or combine or sprayer truck. There's several different options in here, but this one is and most people will be using tractor or articulated tractor, I would say. All right, the next thing you need to do is you need to know the wheelbase of the tractor. So you get you a ruler, you get out of the tractor, and you measure from center axle on the front to center axle on the rear. And on this one, I've already got it programmed. It's 94 inches. The next thing that you got to do is you measure the height from the ground, and you can go in and you program it. And if you have a question about it, you can hit the question mark. And it says the antenna height is the distance between the ground and the top of the GPS antenna. The antenna height is used for terrain compensation. Alright, so on this tractor it's 110 inches. The next thing you'll have is antenna to axle offset. And that is, it shows a picture over here. Here's the antenna on the roof. Now on this tractor, the antenna is on the very back of the cab, and the axle on a mechanical four-wheel drive tractor, the axle that you go to is on the back of the tractor. I read somewhere on an articulated tractor you have to go from the front axle, but I'm not sure of that. And you could take a plumb bob and drop it down and get it centered with your axle, and then you can measure and kind of sight it. It ain't got to be perfect. If you want to get a straight edge to run over from your antenna, to get it perfect, you can, but I didn't. I just kind of sighted the ruler, and I come up with 5 inches forward. So that's programmed in there. Now, after you do that, the next thing that you're going to have to do is set up your implement. Alright, so now to do implement setup, here's what you got to do. You got to go to your field. You got to create a new, well, I'm not creating a new field, but here's where you can create a new field. I'm going to select the field by name because I already have it in there. And the field that I'm going to seed is gems. And then I'm going to continue. I'm going to make a new event, and seeding's not already in the events, so I'm going to do create new, seeding. Alright, now implement setup. It's showing 40 foot wide because I've been spreading lime, and that's how wide my lime spreader spreads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to implement setup, and here's where you have to change all this. So, and you have to do this every time you change implements. You have to do this. There's no way to save that I know of. If there is, please let me know. There's no way to save each implement that you have under a name where you can just choose what implement you're using. But I wish there was. Maybe there's an update I don't have or something somebody could let me in on. But anyway, implement width. Alright, I know this thing is 7 foot wide. So 7 foot. Alright, so we'll do that. Now, you can set an overlap or a skip, and you know what that is. Overlap would be running the drill over top of what you've already drilled, and a skip would be leaving a space in between each drill row, which you don't want to do. So in this particular case, so I don't want to overlap or skip. I don't have a left or right offset. You would use that when you had a disc bind hooked up or a disc mower, and the machine is offset of the vehicle. That's what you would use that for, So we don't need that because it's directly behind the tractor. So the next thing that's here, well, actually I recommend next is to go all the way to the bottom and implement mount type. You choose 3-point hitch or drawbar. It's already on drawbar, and that's what you want. That dictates the next measurement. So that right there should have been at the top of the list, in my opinion, because you have to choose that before you can set the measurements. But it's all the way at the bottom. Anyway, 243 inches behind is what my lime spreader is. So what this setting is, if you go into it, the forward back offset adjusts coverage and guidance when by default the implement is not mounted directly under the GPS or the fixed axle of the vehicle for autopilot. A back offset means the implement is behind the antenna on the back of the vehicle for easy steer, easy pilot, or behind the fixed axle of the vehicle for autopilot. Forward offset means the implement is in forward of the antenna, in front of the vehicle, easy steer, easy pilot, or forward of the fixed axle of the vehicle for autopilot. But anyway, I got to get that measurement. I don't have it yet. I also have to get hitch to ground contact point, which is the hitch on the tractor. I have to get that, and I don't need any implement draft. Anyway, let's get out here and get this measurement. There is two different measurements you get here. One is from the center of the axle to the application point. Now the application point on this seed drill would be where the seed is actually going in the ground. So you have to measure. This is easier to do with a friend, but this will get me close enough. That's 147 inches, so you want to write that down. Alright, so the next measurement that you want is from the hitch to the ground contact point. So it could be the same place as the application point. On some implements like this, it's going to be really close. But on my line spreader, the ground contact point would be where the wheels are, and the application point would be on behind the wheels. So that's the difference. So what I need to do this time is from the hitch of the tractor to the application point. I'm sorry, the hitch of the tractor to the ground contact point. That's going to be 96 inches, so I'm going to write that down. If you get these numbers off just a little bit, it's not going to make a huge deal. The biggest thing you want to get right is your width. That way you have the right spacing between each time you turn around and go back the other way. You want everything to work out and be in line with your last rows that you planted or whatever you're doing. Alright, so I got my numbers, and obviously the next thing I need to do, the forward back offset was 147 behind, and I don't know how I just screwed that up, but let's clear it. 147. Alright, now the hitch to ground offset, hitch to ground contact point is 96 inches. And put that in. Now, that's all there is for this. There's no implement draft. Got the drawbar set. Now, after you get all that in, you hit check, and then you can move on to the next step. Now, do you want to record a boundary? In this particular case, yes, I believe I do. So I'll choose yes. Alright, then this is record keeping. You can do this or you don't have to do this. It's not necessary, but if you like to keep up with what you're doing, you can, and you can download it on a thumb drive and put it on your computer. I don't worry about all this wind and sky conditions and soil conditions. It's no big deal to me. Anyway, once you do that, hit enter. Now you're ready to start. One other thing you got to do though, if you notice over here, you just have this field emblem and a couple other things. if you want to leave a line that your guidance, if you're using auto steer, you need to leave a guidance line as you travel. So the next round you come back around, or when you turn around and go the other way, it uses that line to guide the GPS. Now, in order to turn that on, I don't know why it doesn't automatically come on. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. What you got to do is you hit field again, and it'll say, are you finished working with the current field? You have to say no. Add AB line, you click on, well, you click to check. Alright, now you look up here, it'll say pattern type. You got to choose pattern type and choose the type of pattern you want. You guys out west, you're probably using straight AB lines, or identical curves or adaptive curves. What I always have to use where I live is called freeform. Wherever I drive, it makes a line, and then the next time I come back around, the next pass follows that line. I do not have auto steer, but it's the only way you can make, there's a light bar up here in the top of this thing, it's the only way you can make that work. So I choose freeform, and then it asks me if I want to do a boundary again. Yeah, I do. Now you see I have more buttons over here. This button here turns on, if you can see up here, it turns a little button, play button on and off. And when that is on, it's leaving the little trail that it uses to follow the next time on the next pass. If you do not have that turned on, the next pass you make, the light bar won't work, your auto steer won't work, and you're wondering why it won't work. That's why. Now, once you get going and you start, every time you're putting out seed, or you're using your application, doing whatever you're applying, lime, seed, whatever you're doing, you push this button and it'll start painting the ground behind you, and it automatically turns on this line up here, and it leaves the line that your auto steer follows on the next pass. And every time you turn it off, it automatically turns that freeform line off, or AB line, whatever you got on. It turns it on and off automatically with this. Now this is your auto steer button over here. If you have auto steer, I assume that this one button press would turn it on and off if you had it on, but I can't even turn it on. So I don't know anything about the auto steer. So that is basically the extent of what I know about this thing. It's not much. I do know that status, if you push status, it gives you this little box, and it'll tell you after you make a perimeter around the field. That's what it was asking me, if I wanted to make a boundary. After you make a boundary, it'll tell you the field, it'll calculate the acreage in the field for you, and then it tells you how much area you have covered, and it'll tell you the productive area of the field. Tells you how much nudge. Nudge is where you can see, how can you nudge it? I can't remember. Somehow you can kind of, like if you're going across the side of a hill, for example, and your seed drill is dragging down the hill, or your disc bind, whatever you're pulling, tends to go down the hill. So what you can do is you can hit the button, the nudge button, and I just can't remember where it's at right off, but you can hit the nudge button over to the left, and you can adjust the tractor up the hill to get your implement back in line with where you need it to be at. And I don't use that very often. I hardly ever use it. So anyway, I hope you're not more confused now than you were when I started this video. If you have any questions about it, you can ask me and I'll try to answer them. But I'm not the best with this thing. This thing is not very user friendly. It's definitely not the best setup I've ever seen for a GPS, but I mean, to me, it was expensive. It was about $3,500, close to $4,000. But it's, I guess in GPS land, that's pretty cheap. So what I'm comparing it to is the GPSs that we use that are TopCon on our grading equipment that cost close to $100,000 for one machine. And it saves all the data for each. You can change machines with it if you have the wiring and stuff on another machine, and it saves each machine. You just change it over, move the box to that machine, and then you choose that machine you got it on, and it's all saved in there, and you don't have to do anything other than choose it. I guess that's what I'm comparing this to, and it's not as easy to use as the TopCon systems on our grading equipment. So it does work though. It does the job, and I'm pleased with that part of it. It's just not very user friendly. All right, I guess I have talked your ear off long enough. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go out here and try to drill a little bit of seed in the ground in the dark. That is one advantage to using GPS. I can go out in the dark and plant, spread lime, whatever I want to do, and I ain't got to see the ground. I ain't got to see my tracks. When it gets dark, it's kind of funny because it's almost like playing a video game, because I don't even look where I'm going because there's not any use, and you can't see the tracks and stuff where you need to be at. I just sit and watch the screen. I mean, I look where I'm going occasionally to make sure I'm not going to run into a tree or something. But I just sit and watch the screen, and it's like playing Farm Simulator. I'm just turning the steering wheel and keeping the tractor lined up with the light bars, and where I hadn't painted the ground yet, and I just drive along and watch the screen. So it's kind of cool. I've actually, in an open field, I've actually just cut the lights off on the tractor. And in a field, I'd done this in a field that I knew well, and I knew there was no obstacles in it. I just cut the lights off on the tractor and was just driving around looking at the screen and spreading lime the other night. And that was pretty cool, I thought, because I knew exactly where I was at in the field, but I didn't have to see where I was going. All right, well, I'll catch you next time. See y'all later.